Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose.
Hello everyone, good night and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson. Tonight we're going to be talking about owning a piece of Jamaica and why it is important for you to own a piece of Jamaica now before it's actually too late. You see, there is a movement afoot in Jamaica and it's moving quite rapidly, much faster than you can imagine. And that movement is so rapid and so extensive that you might find yourself completely disenfranchised as a landowner in Jamaica. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So welcome to all of you. I see Desmond Myrie, Leslie Brown, Nigos, Joey, Annalisa, what's that now? Taurus King and Joey Gordon. Welcome to all of you and thank you so much for joining me. So tonight we want to talk about our lovely, lovely country here in Jamaica. If you're on Facebook, you might have seen a number of pictures which I've shared with me and my wife, some of our family members, as we go around the country and enjoy a piece of our Jamaica. In my opinion, I think we have taken our country too lightly. We have allowed Jamaica to be a place primarily for the enjoyment of tourists, while we the people suffer and struggle just about too much in this country. And so I took some time to be a tourist the last few days, so to speak, touring parts of our country and just enjoying our beaches and some of our attractions. One of them was the Lover's Leap. I was so impressed. I stopped by the other day for the first time in a few years. I've been there before, but when I stopped by, I noticed that it was completely renovated by new owners who truly have good taste and a real appreciation for what people expect to find at an attraction such as Lover's Leap. So hats off to the new management there, and I encourage all Jamaicans around the world, when you get the chance, to stop in South St. Elizabeth and check out Lover's Leap and see how they have renovated and improved the place. Welcome, Dottie. God bless you as well. Good to see you on. I hope all of you had a good Good Friday, yeah, and that the Easter holidays are going well for you if you celebrate the same. And if not, I just hope that you nonetheless have a safe and peaceful period with your family and your friends. So tonight we're talking real estate, and not just any real estate. We're talking about the real estate, the rock that we call Jamaica. I want to kick off our discussion tonight, and by the way, I'm going to have a call-in session. So I'm going to put the phone number on screen here, and please feel free to call in and let's have a talk about the matter of why it is so urgent, so very urgent, for you to become a property owner in Jamaica, and what it means to be a property owner in Jamaica. The truth of the matter is that none of us really own property in Jamaica, but I'll get to that later. But let me ask you, Do you own any land or property in Jamaica? Let me see the hands of those who have any form of property in the country, meaning a piece of land or a house. Either you inherited it or you bought it. Let me see if you have anybody. Just raise your hand. Say yes if you have land or house here in Jamaica. And let me know how many of you here are actually landholders, meaning you have a title to some piece of land here in Jamaica. Kick Rock, are you saying yes, you have land in Jamaica? All right, so Kick Rock say yes, he or she has land or property, a house or something like that here in Jamaica. There are many Jamaicans and a whole lot of Jamaicans who don't have any land at all, much more a house. There are many who are renting. There's some who we have called, our government has called squatters. And, there are many Jamaicans struggling really hard to keep a roof over their heads or to find a roof to put over their heads. So how about the price of buying land or building a house in Jamaica? Do you find it to be exorbitant and out of your reach? Let me know how you find it. Is it too much for you when you're trying to get land? Do you find it to be way too expensive to buy land or house in Jamaica? Dottie has 2 properties. Wonderful. Joey said he just left university at age 24. So Joey, because you just left university, you don't have any land, right? Or any property. That's the point. And Mr. Myra says he's still paying a mortgage. If I'm qualified. Yeah, man. You have a piece of something you're paying down on, so you still qualify. So yes. And Roundtable Talk TV says, I have mine in Sligoville, St. Catherine, Jamaica. So some of you have land. Some of you think you're too young to have any land in Jamaica. I have land. I bought land in my latter years, much later than 24. My wife and I struggled and put some money together and bought some land in St. Elizabeth here. And so we are landholders. We have title to land here in Jamaica. Tonight I want to share with you a plan on how you can become a property owner in Jamaica. It's a very serious plan, a very practical plan, a plan that if you follow it, you will definitely become a property owner no matter how young you are. In fact, it doesn't matter if you're poor, low income, or if you have no income at all. There is a way for you to own land free and clear in Jamaica. But the truth is, the way of becoming a property owner in Jamaica, the way I'm going to prescribe to you, is a very narrow window. Yeah? And in order for you to become a property owner in Jamaica, you first have to know your rights. And unfortunately, most of us apparently do not know our rights. Because if we knew our rights, we would have long ago become property owners in this wonderful country that we call Jamaica. But because we don't know our rights, we have been taken for a ride. So tonight I'm going to share with you how you can become a property owner, or you can own land free and clear. So take a minute and send a message to your friends and family. Share this live with them wherever they are in the world. They could be here in Jamaica, in the parish of St. Elizabeth where I reside, or they could be in one of the other 13 parishes, or they could be in one of the many countries around the world where we Jamaicans find ourselves. I have met Jamaicans in the farthest reaches of the world, whether it's in China or Singapore or Ghana or Kuwait. We have Jamaicans everywhere. So wherever you are tonight, I want you to share this live with your family and your friends, your co-workers. Tell them to jump on, because tonight we're going to talk about how each and every one of you, if you are a legitimate citizen of Jamaica, and not just any citizen. I like to call you an indigenous Jamaican, meaning this is your original roots. Yeah. So you're not a transplant from, say, another country who came here and took up citizenship, but you are a born Jamaican or the child of a born Jamaican whose ancestry dates back to the time of slavery and before. So tonight is for you. Tonight is about how you can become a property owner, and there's a clear path that I want to lay out for you tonight, how you can take full advantage of that to becoming a property owner. Now, once you know your rights, it's very important that you take to secure. The purpose of inaction is to lose your right forever, and not just for you, but for your children and your children's children. So if you fail to take action after we have discussed the way to become a property owner in Jamaica, regardless of your income level, if you fail to take action tonight, you're not only costing yourself, but you're costing your children and your children's children as well. And so tonight, I want you to take this lesson very carefully. Yeah, don't miss a word. So put on whatever you're doing and tune in completely to what we're going to talk about tonight. This is extremely, extremely serious business. We must act now because we have a government. We have a government that is 100% committed to closing the door on you knowing that right, understanding that right, and exercising that right before they completely eliminate that right. And their plan is to eliminate that right. I'm not guessing, I'm not bluffing, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm making it very clear that as we speak, your government, those who currently occupy Gordon House, calling themselves government or opposition, they are 100% committed to not understanding this right and not exercising this right because they have other plans for your land. And I want to help you to secure that land starting tonight. At the rate at which the government is selling and giving away our country, soon there will be nothing left for us to own as individuals. Believe it or not, thousands of acres have been given to foreign interest, as well as to a connected few, while many Jamaicans remain propertyless and struggling day and night to maintain a roof over their heads. But why is this so? Why have we not demanded what is rightfully ours? Why have we allowed a very few people in Jamaica to actually take away our rights and force us to slave to own property? The answer is simple. Very, very simple. Do you want to hear it? It's a very, very simple answer. It is so simple that you might find it very hard to believe. You might find it very hard to believe how simple it is, the method by which a few set of people have been able to deny you and your family and your children this basic fundamental right that you have. It's amazing. I've always been taken aback when I study the history of slavery in Jamaica and similar territories like in the US and so on, how it is that a few people, a few Europeans, a few white men, if you go and look at the slave records, you'll notice the ratio of massas, the ratio of the slave owners, the ratio of the slave owning population to the slave population was always very small. So it's a small number of people who were able to control a large number of persons and subjugate them. Isn't that amazing? I've always been amazed at it. I've studied history a lot. I was an A student in school when it comes on to history because I love the subject so much. When I study history, I don't just read it topically. I don't just read history at the surface level to say, time and place and names and dates and so on. I always try to immerse myself into the study of history to understand what must it feel like, what must it have been like to be a slave, to wake up every morning, to go to bed every night, to go through the day knowing that you were somebody else's property and they could do with you whatever they wanted to do with you. They could beat you, they could rape you, they could work you as hard or as long as they wanted to. They could sell you if they wanted to. They could do anything with you. I always thought about it and said, amazing how it is that you can have 1 to 20 or 1 to 30 or 1 to 40 or 20 white persons to 200 black persons as slaves. I was always amazed at it. Then I figured out the secret. The secret to maintaining slaves is quite simple. First of all, you have to use fear. You have to make sure that they fear you. Like they have to fear you. Many persons fear challenging the political establishment. They're afraid to challenge the political establishment because they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of being victimized. So fear keeps them in slavery, whatever form of slavery it is. So fear is a number one tool of slavery and a very effective tool too. So fear is one. Another effective tool that is used is ignorance. That is why they never wanted the slaves to learn how to read and to write, because when you learn how to read, you can read and learn and understand. When you learn how to write, you can jot down ideas, you can jot down concepts, you can send written communications to your fellow slaves, and you can, succeed. Now, ignorance is more than just not being able to read and write. They also use religion. They use myths. They use superstition. Whatever it takes to keep that person in an unstable position where they cannot properly analyze and take action to defend themselves or to extricate themselves from a trap. So if you keep the animal, if you keep the slave, if you keep the person fearful and ignorant, then you have them under control. And by the way, ignorance doesn't mean not being able to read and write, because you can teach them to read and write, but you can teach them to read the wrong things and write the wrong things. You can teach them to think the wrong things and do the wrong things. For example, take TikTok. In China, TikTok is used to disseminate educational information among their people and lift up their knowledge base and get them to be thinking the way that is going to move their country and their economy in a particular positive direction. While TikTok can be sent to the rest of us to dumb us down and to have us, really engrossed in things that are not really going to lift us up and empower us. So education is key. So in Jamaica, we have an education system that dumbs down most of the population. And, we don't understand money, we don't understand ourselves, we don't understand relationships, and so on. So they have used a system effectively, just like in slavery. In slavery, it was don't read, don't write. In the modern slavery, it is teach them wrong concepts, wrong ideas, and give them wrong motivations and wrong directions so that we can control them. Yeah, so they have done that very, very well. So I only told you two things though. Number one, I told you it was using fear, which is a powerful tool. So much fear that many persons will never run for office in this country. They'll never be a candidate. They'll never join an upstart political party because they're fearful. They'll talk all day long. They'll talk about how they don't like the system and how bad the government is, but they would never step out. They would never do anything but talk. They'll go on TV. They'll be very intellectual, very intelligent, and they can tell you all kinds of facts and figures, and they'll skirt around the issues, and they will tell you both sides of the story and so on. But they will never do anything. They'll never challenge themselves. They'll never step up to the plate. They'll never actually get into the trenches and take up the weapon and go to war to fight for what they know to be true or right. They're fearful. And we have many of them. Many of them we see on talk shows and radio and TV, and they talk and they keep their job and they go along with because they're fearful. And of course, there are some who don't even know that they're fearful because they're so ignorant. They're unaware. They're uninformed. They don't understand what's going on around them because they have bought into a system of education, an ideology of education that makes them dunce to the reality, while they might have a PhD, a master's, an undergraduate, or even several years experience working in some government ministry or private sector entity. But in reality, they're dunce to what's happening, and therefore they're emasculated. They can't do anything. They can't help with anything. They can't help to make anything happen. They can't change anything. They can just fit in and be a part of the mill and go along with the process while they're being enslaved, exploited, and grinded into the ground, they and their children and their family and their society, all in one. So fear, ignorance. But there's a third element which is used to conquer and to keep a people oppressed and down. And that third element is just as critical as the first two. And that third element is to keep them poor, weak, powerless, at least in their minds, from a financial standpoint. So you never give the slaves enough for them to become economically powerful. So a slave must be kept economically weak. So you must get them into the mindset of a minimum wage. You must get them into the mindset of begging government to set their wages and set the prices that they're going to operate at. They look to others, not to themselves, not to their own abilities. They don't demand value and give value. They seek to exist in an environment where they kind of get something based on what the masters say. The master being either the colonial master or their replacement or their substitute, the government. And so this is how they kept slaves for 400 years, through fear, ignorance, and economic weakness. The very same thing they do today. Fear, so you never stand up against the power that be. You're fearful. You want to protect your family, protect your assets, you think. While what you're doing is giving away your power and give away your rights. And to the point where you finally wake up and you're fully handcuffed by their system of economics and their system of politics and their system of social brainwashing. Yeah. Because you're fearful. And then you subscribe to their education system, you blindly accept it and drink it in and pass it on to your children. So you and your children and grandchildren remain ignorant of what's really happening around you. So ignorant that you're easily trapped by the free grains of corns that you give to a bird when you're trying to catch it. You're trying to catch a wild bird, you put up the trap in a box, a piece of stick, you tie a cord to it, a very long cord, and you hide behind the bushes. Sprinkle some free corn and eat it. Always watchful. I wonder if somebody trying to trap me. And they're watching and they eat the corn. They come by the next day, some more free corn. They eat again. And little by little, you move the corn steadily until it's right under the box. And because every day they're getting the free corn or the free education, not realizing that they're being brainwashed, or the free healthcare, not realizing that they're being socialized into giving up their bodily autonomy. Yeah. And the politics where they don't realize that somebody else is nominating the candidates for them, because it's free politics. They're not donating any money. They're just there saying, what are you giving me? Give me the goat. Give me the free goat. Give me the free zinc. Give me the free blocks. Or give me the free rum for the funeral. Or give me this, whatever it is. And you're focusing on the give me this and give me this politics. And the free education tricks. And the free healthcare tricks. And all manner of freeness. Freeness to take injection. Freeness to take the central bank digital currency. Free this, free this. Come and get it. We're giving it away. Not realizing that you're like an ignorant little bird being fed free corns so that you walk right into the trap. And when the bird eat the corn day after day after day until it finally walk right under the trap and eat the last drop of free corn, and the person that's in the bushes just pull the cord, and then the bird is trapped. Now, all that free corn don't mean nothing, because the bird has now lost its freedom and will shortly thereafter lose its life. The same thing goes for me and you. If we do not wise up and be more smart, be smarter than the birds. So here is the simple reason why you and I and our parents have worked so hard and struggled so long to pay for a roof over our heads. Here's why. I'm going to tell you why. But before I do, I want to break for a moment. Give me 1 second as I break for a moment here. Just a minute. All right, so I am back with you. I understand that some of you are trying to call in. Please hold off on the calls for a minute. I will tell you when to call in, all right? So hold your calls for now, and I will tell you when to call in. Please and thank you. But as I was saying, there is a simple reason why you have been struggling, why I had to struggle. My wife and I worked for 40, well, not 40, because, we were about 40 at the time. When we purchased our property, we purchased a big piece of property, right? But we were about 40 at the time, or 39 or somewhere there. So we had worked prior to that for, I started working early, but let's say roughly, 15 years? Roughly 15 years. So we worked very hard and struggled. And when we bought this piece of property, practically everything that we had, we put into it and get a piece of property. So we struggled. My mother, she built a little house. She built a little house in Seaview Gardens. She got that house through Michael Manley, she said. She was so grateful. She's eternally grateful to Michael Manley. She couldn't understand why I wasn't sharing her enthusiasm. I said, Mommy, why you have to be depending on Michael Manley for a house? Why can't all of we as Jamaicans, all of us, just earn, just have an economy, have a country where we can just work and earn and buy what we want and don't have to give no special mention to any politician, that any politician give me this or give me that. We just worked and earned and pay for what we want? Why it have to be that a Manly give me this or a Siaga give me that? Why can't we have an economy where we all just earn and buy what we want? But that's for another day. Today, I want to focus on the issue of why you are struggling so hard to own a piece of Jamaica and how your government has made it very hard for you to own a piece of Jamaica. And then I'm going to tell you how you can exercise your right to a piece of property in this country. I'm going to explain to you how you can do that. I'm going to explain that. Now, there's a reason why you haven't demanded your right. And the reason is this. The two colonial parties have actually convinced you, have actually convinced us, me included for a while. I figured it out eventually. But the two colonial parties that we trusted, that we gave our hearts and our minds and our votes, the two colonial parties that we had so much confidence in over the last 80 years, they convinced us that we must work hard, struggle, slave to buy land, and then struggle and slave to build a house. Or we must struggle and slave to qualify for an NHT loan. And as their inflationary policy expands, we have to also go and struggle and slave to seek some form of supplemental financing from a private bank to buy a home. Let that sink in, because what I'm about to share with you is going to liberate your minds in ways that it may never have been. I want you to know that you were convinced, not by your own inclination, but by these two parties. You were convinced that this is the way that you are supposed to go about acquiring land, a house, and a home. The trick of these two parties have worked so very well, so well, that we have even bought into the next lie. The first lie was that you needed to work very hard and struggle and slave to get a piece of land. And of course, you have to then struggle and slave to build a house, or struggle and slave to qualify for NHT, and struggle and slave to seek and get supplemental financing from a bank, because NHT usually isn't enough. And where you get out of NHT is normally a little box, a mattress box, or something like that. My mother got a piece of wall. It was amazing. My mother got a piece of wall down at Seaview Gardens. They gave her a small plot of land, not gave, she had to pay for it. So my mother had to make a down payment. I remember she never had the money. She had to go and beg family members to help her out, to cobble the little money together to make the down payment. And my grandmother, who by the way was a very astute entrepreneur, young lady, I was so impressed with my grandmother because, after all the struggles she went through as a single mother herself, she was able to build a grocery store and made something of herself. She even traveled the world. She took 1 month, I think, off from her business nearing her senior years, and she traveled the world one time and then come back home, and that was it, and she retired. Now, prior to that though, my mother had to borrow some money from her to try to make a deposit on a little piece of land. Seaview houses, right? Seaview Gardens in Kingston. Little piece of land. Because before that, we were living in a one-room house. One-room house. Not a one-bedroom house. A one-room house. A little 10 by 10 unit. No bathroom inside or anything. That's what we lived in, the four of us. My mother my big brother, my big sister, and myself. I was the wash belly, they called it. And so we lived and existed in that one little box until Michael Manley, gave my mother a little piece of land. I'm going to guess, I don't know the exact measurement, but I think it was maybe around 25 to 30 feet long by about, I'm going to guess, 20 or 25 feet wide. Just from my memory, I don't, not quite sure, but I think that's roughly the dimensions. And she got one wall with the pothead for the meter into it, and that's it. Yeah. And then my mother worked her behind half and built a small 3-bedroom house on that piece of land. And she was eternally grateful to Michael Manley for that house. Just like many others who were living in that community down at what they call bottom side. That's what they do it to them. So she was eternally grateful for the little piece of house she got, not house, the piece of land she got down at bottom side in the Seaview Gardens. And the people at the top side, just above the train line, they were now grateful for the house them get from Papa Heddy, from Seaga. You see what I'm on, right? Garrison them are creating them. Garrison them are built. So Manley a build Fiend Garrison down a bottom side, and because them lose the election later, then when the JLP come in, now Seaga come in, him put Fiend people them up a top side. So the people at top side are forever loyal to Seaga and the JLP. And they don't like the people at the bottom side, who is forever loyal to Manley and the PNP. And the two of them are fight. Yeah? And so you create garrison and war zone and make us into terrorists, terrorizing each other over these two tribes. I remember I had to organize a police youth club down at the south side, the bottom side. And then I had a friend who had organized a youth club over on the north side or the top side. I think it was called Majestic Youth Club. And so the two of us, Levon Phillips and myself and others, like his sister Opal and others, we brought the two communities together, top side and bottom side, and tell them, what kind of foolishness is this? Why are we allowing these two parties to divide us? We're Jamaicans. Most of us had pretty much the same skin color. If you're Kotwe, you're the same blood. And if you look at our standard of living and the same struggles we go through, why are we allowing these people to divide us? And so the two clubs start to work together in bringing people together, and we start to clean up the community. We built our own little park right on the train line and beautify it and try to bring people together. But I digress. The point I wanted to make here, it's a very important point, is that we have been tricked. And so the first trick was that we needed to struggle and buy the land. And the second trick was that we needed to pay property tax forever, in perpetuity. Yeah? We were to pay property tax on these lands for the rest of our lives that we slaved and purchased. So not only were we to slave and purchase the land, we were now to slave and pay a tax on the land that we purchased and on which we paid tax at the time when we purchased it. That is the second trick. This was done not just by the PNP or the JLP. This wicked trick was played upon us by both the PNP and the JLP. I want you to remember that. Let that sink in. It was the PNP and the JLP who tricked us into the idea, who convinced us of the idea that this is how we must acquire land. And it was the PNP and the JLP who also convinced us and enshrined in law or maintained in law from their colonial masters the idea that we must pay property tax in perpetuity. And so we must forever pay rent on the land that we slaved and buy from them. And who gave them the right to sell that land? From whom did they buy that land? Where did they get the land from? Where did they get this land from that we must buy from them? Oh, they got it from their colonial masters. And where did their colonial masters get the land from? Think about that question. Where did their colonial masters get the land from that they gave them to sell us? Now, here's the worst part about this. Some of you who are listening to me right now, in fact, maybe all of you who are listening to me right now, maybe you voted for them. And worst of all, maybe you will vote for them again, even after realizing that they have been and still are working against us and not for us. You will still go and vote for them again because the ignorance is so deep, the brainwashing is so thorough, the idiocy baked into our mind is so damaging that even after we learn and realize what they have done to us, some of us will still go and vote for them again. And then there are some of us who will say, "Me nah vote for no politician." In other words, they are so ignorant that they don't realize that not voting for the politician is by extension voting for the politicians, because they're giving up their right to choose their leaders to those who are ignorant enough to vote against their own self-interest. Some of you will still vote for them because a small or significant benefit was received by you from one of their politicians or through the time when their party was in power, while failing to see that the amount by which you have been robbed far outweighs any small gain that you might have received. My mother gained a house from Michael Manley. Yeah, or so she thought. And what she did not realize, that she couldn't live in that house comfortably because the area was a bit of a war zone, among other things, a lot of unsavory things. The community just wasn't at the level it needed to be. Yeah. Now, nothing is wrong if you, like many of us, were tricked at the first and you voted for one of these two parties. What is seriously wrong is if you allow yourself to be tricked again. Yeah. What is seriously wrong is if you allow yourself to be tricked again. Now, let us talk about something that drives a lot of the problems we have, that leads to us having a hard time getting the land that we need to get. But I want to ask you to bear with me for a moment here. I'm having another technical challenge here that we need to deal with. 1 second.
Stronger,
Imagine a world without choices.
stronger, Imagine you can't make your own decision.
That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for
Okay, I'm back with so I wanted to now shift our conversation a little bit to some surrounding where is your life? What's happening with you? Why is it that they want to convince you to struggle and fight and talk? And why is it that many of us will not be able to win that by the supply of the renewable lands? Many will live and die. You have nothing to pass on to their children or grandchildren by design. So one of the things the government continues to do year after year, whether they tell you about decreases in loans or whatever, one of the things they continue to do is to borrow. And the more they borrow money, the more we lose control over our land, over our assets, over our seas, over our sovereignty. The more they get. Borrowing from foreign countries like China or America to build a Jamaica was never and still not necessary. We have and had the capacity to self-finance our development. But again, the JLP and the PNP opted for quick and easy money in order to enrich a few at the expense of the many. And that is the primary reason for much of the borrowing that they have. They could not wait and allow the organic growth within the country and the ability of government to actually print money in concerted or productive capacity to gradually grow the economy and raise the funds internally to build out our infrastructure. They need to accelerate this, not for our benefit, not to increase our productive capacity, but to increase how quickly a large amount of cash comes into their hands so that they get to decide what to do with that cash in the concentrated period of 4 to 5 years between election cycles. Now, this is not of their own doing. It's a model that was given to us by our colonial masters who fully well knew how partisan politics work and how designing a governance model that way would incentivize politicians to behave. And so our politicians have behaved exactly how the colonial masters knew they would behave given the kind of governance model that we so graciously accepted and embraced through two colonial parties that they sanctioned and encouraged. So I want you to understand that the massive amount of borrowing that we have undertaken over the last 60 years that left us $2 trillion in debt, and for which we have suffered and suffered and suffered to repay, was not necessary. It was a clear and calculating decision made by our political leaders in order to accelerate their ability to become wealthy at the expense of the majority of us being left out in the cold and suffering and struggling like my mother did, unnecessarily, because of their choices. So I'm going to show you now how this is leading to the loss of your property rights. I'm going to show you how this is leading to a loss of your property rights. I hear that my sound is bad. I don't know why, but hopefully you can hear me. So here's what, and the answer to this problem that we're having is not more political parties. You need to understand the problem. That is why the UIC talks about a non-partisan system. We don't need 4 political parties or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. What we need is knowledge and understanding. Now, concerning this matter of borrowing, if we can take billions, think about this, if we can take billions in debt to build infrastructure, we could have borrowed this money from ourselves, from the diaspora, while employing our own engineers, our own workers, putting our own people to work to build our infrastructure and keeping that money circulating within our economy. Instead, we adopted a very leaky model, which meant borrowing external funds, spending this money fast, a large portion of it going back to the lender, because when the lender, let's say China, for example, and I'm not picking on China because China is not doing anything different from what America did, from what England did, from what Spain did, from what the European Union is doing, and so on. They're all doing the same thing. They're here to exploit. And the only issue is whether or not you have a leadership, a government that is intelligent enough, is sensible enough to manage those geopolitical relationships to ensure that we do not get the wrong end of the stick. But as it is now, our leaders have failed on a monumental scale when we could have simply borrowed that money internally. And I'm using ideas now that would need some time to explain, but just trust me on this for now. Okay? We could have borrowed organically, meaning the government printing just enough money to match the productive capacity of our people to be able to implement new infrastructure using our own graduates from UTech and the University of the West Indies and the Maritime Institute and other institutions, our hard trust graduates. We could have used them. We could have brought back some of our great men and women in the diaspora who have gone and learned civil engineering and worked on massive projects across North America, Europe, and Asia and other places. We could have brought them back, enticed them to come back with the appropriate rewards, and have our people engage in the engineering and infrastructure building and fully building out the infrastructure that we need to get to where we need to get to. And what that would have done is to cause the economy to multiply internally, as opposed to what borrowing from China does, which is we borrow the money from them, they use that money to buy their own labor and their own expertise and even materials and stuff from them, and then we're paying them back interest on it. But our human capital has not grown because much of the job is not done by us, nor are we building skills as a result of it. And so we're really just losing money while our capacity isn't growing. For example, if you drive on any one of our toll highways any day at all, you'll notice that there are very few cars driving on those highways. They're normally, for the most part, empty, most of them. Every time I drive on them, at least, I never have a problem. It's really very smooth and empty for the most part. If you ever drive on the bypass or alternative roads, you see those roads are still full with people trying to avoid the toll. So we're not getting the level of efficiency out of them. It's really there for the rich, primarily. Yeah, those who can afford it. Most of the people are not on it. So yes, we could have, for example, floated a diaspora bond and use that as a big part of our funding vehicle. And most importantly, we could use an organic form of financing that would have worked very well in tandem with our population growth. So you build out your road infrastructure in line with your population growth, and you are using your internal engineers and architects and workers, so building their capacity and experience and competence at the same time, and then eventually you grow to bigger and bigger projects, but your economy would have grown to absorb that and benefit from that, and would have meant Jamaica being a much more prosperous country. But no, we haven't done that. We have gone the easy, cheap route that left us in the end destitute. Yeah. Now, with an estimated 4 million Jamaicans abroad, we could have issued that sovereign wealth fund or bond, but the JLP and PNP knew they would only buy these bonds if they had confidence in our governance. And they all know that Jamaicans here at home and abroad have no confidence in the government of Jamaica. They know that they cannot trust the JLP and the PNP with their money. They know that. They have tried them before and they have seen it. They've been burned several times. FinSAC was a burn. Just recently we saw the SSL thing. So there's lots of reasons why Jamaicans abroad have not really seen it fit, and the government would not have been very successful, floating a very significant bond outside of just going to the easy sources like China in this case, or the IMF before, and so on. So we need to hire outsiders and borrow more money to build toll highways. Our government need to do that because that's easy for them. But in fact, we didn't need to do that. And in fact, what we're doing is we're causing the Jamaican people to pay tax upon tax. We're taxing you twice. So we have charged you taxes which should have provided good roads, right? But because of how corrupt the government is, we neither have well-designed roads, well-built roads, or well-maintained roads. We don't have either of that. So it's not well-designed, it's not well-built, and it's not well-maintained. We only get well-designed roads, well-built roads, and well-maintained roads if we sell our land, give away our property, and allow a foreign entity to come in and build those roads, own those roads, and charge us tolls for those roads. Then they remain well-built, well-designed, well-maintained. And we, the Jamaican people now, are forced to pay twice. Now, what does that mean? It means we already have the money here, so we could have raised the funds ourselves, design, build, and maintain the roads ourselves, and the money would have been here to pay for it, because the only reason you're borrowing to build something is if you know that by borrowing to build it, you can pay for it. So if you can pay for it, why enter into an arrangement where you give away thousands in acres of land and give away ownership of your asset and allow an outside party to drain revenues from your country? Do you see the idiocy of that arrangement? Do you see how comical and just absolutely nonsensical that approach is? But we have been led to accept it as okay, as normal. We can't expect and hope for anybody to come here and transfer knowledge to us. We have to go out and get it. We have to stop hoping and praying and begging for other nations to come and rescue us from ourselves. We are our problem. Not the CIA, not the IMF, not China, not America, not UK, not the EU. We are our problem. Yes, they came and they were able to overpower us because we were not able to defend ourselves. And so it's time for us to stop blaming others now and take full responsibility for our incompetence and our failures. If we had not stolen or mismanaged our tax dollars, all existing roads could have been maintained and gradually expanded to meet the needs of our growing population. In other words, the Jamaican people are being forced to pay the price of 80 years of corruption and mismanagement by two corrupt gangs that have taken them for an economic ride. We have been taken hostage by two gangs who continue to exploit our fears, our ignorance, and our economic weakness, which they induce upon us day upon day upon day. They have worked to keep us in fear. They have worked to keep us ignorant, and they have worked to keep us economically weak and poor and vulnerable so they can continue to exploit us by borrowing monies in our name, stealing a significant portion of it, giving away our assets, running down our assets, cheapening our assets, degrading our human capital in order to maintain their master position while we remain in a slave-like condition to them as being superior. And in fact, they are superior to us. Those who run the two major parties in Jamaica, the two colonial parties, they are superior to us. We are inferior, because there's no way that we can be anything but inferior if we allow these people to continue to dominate us and rip us off and cheat us, and we sit down and sup it. They are systematically leaving the people to live in squalor on the margins as low-wage slaves, unemployed or underemployed, with little or no hope in their own country for upward mobility. That's what they've done to us. That's what they're doing to us. They're leaving us to live in squalor and on the margins as squatters, as low-wage slaves, in dingy little tiny houses from NHT that we must slave and expand. I'm so amazed at what we do with those little boxes they give us from NHT. Do you ever notice how powerful we are? How we find it within us to build a bigger house on the little one that they give us? It means we have the potential. We have the capacity. Why are we allowing them to hold us down, to beat us down, to sabotage us, to extract our hard-earned wealth out of us and cause us to live such menial and meager lives for so long? Why are we allowing this? I think it's time for us to say enough is enough. But it doesn't end there. There's more to come. There's a lot more pain to come. Only more pain. I know Mr. Holness had promised us bitter medicine. And boy, is he dishing it out. Is he dishing it out? We're getting a whole heap of bitter medicine right now, while telling us how great we're doing. It's amazing. They have to try so hard to market to us how great we're doing. Look at this great thing we're doing. Look at this great thing we're doing. Look how great we are over here. Look how great. They're every day, and then the PNP now come and tell you, we did greater back then. We did greater back then. Come on, man. We're not that foolish. We are not that foolish. We cannot sit here and allow these two gangs to trick us again. 80 years must be enough. 8 decades must be enough. But is it? Well, Watch what's going to happen now as interest rates begin to increase. You think you can't afford your mortgage now? You think you can't afford the cost of living now? Watch what is about to happen as the US dollar loses its dominance status in the marketplace. Watch what is going to happen. As interest rate increases, Jamaica will find itself in a squeeze. That's why Nigel Clark run to the IMF the other day and come back and give us a nice story about how him get a nice line of credit set up if there are any eventualities, and they have this standby agreement and that agreement and so on. But here what is going to happen. As the squeeze sets in, as the noose around our neck tightens from all angles, whether it's China or the IMF or any other bilateral arrangements, as the squeeze increases, the politicians will simply ask us to ban our bellies again and suck up the austerity measures by accepting low wages, wage freezes, wage cuts, underfunded schools, underfunded hospitals, uncollected garbage, unclean streets, while they blame each other for the mess into which they both conned us. And they have no problem blaming each other, because that's a part of the con. A part of the con, a part of the trick, is for us to swap them every time we get upset so we don't burn down the plantation. Yeah, the psychological strategy of divide and conquer is for us to have somebody to blame other than those who should be really blamed, and to feel as though we have an alternative, and to swap the alternative, not realizing that those behind the scene, the puppet masters who are pulling the strings, have us right where they want us, thinking that our only hope today is to vote PNP. And after them grind us with the PNP, we must then say our only hope is the JLP. And then they grind us again, and we say our only hope is the PNP. And then they grind us again, and then we say our only hope is the JLP. And we keep doing that, and they send the fool a little farther. Yeah, a little farther. Send the fool. And we keep doing it over and over. And we have our favorites. Oh, we have Manley, my favorite. Oh, we have Siaga, my favorite. Oh, we have Portia, my favorite. Oh, we have Bruce, my favorite. Oh, we have Andrew. Oh, we have this, PJ, Shira, whoever. It doesn't matter, my friends. It no matter which face they put on it. It doesn't matter if it's a black face, a brown face, a white face, a woman face, a young face. It does not matter. The game is rigged. It's designed to trick you, to fool you, to con you, to rob you, and it is working brilliantly. That's why, whether you vote PNP or JLP, you'll work hard to be able to own a piece of land or property. And if you should succeed in buying it after you slave and get to buy it, you will pay a rent for it for the rest of your life. And even as you become a senior citizen and you're getting older, and it's harder for you to earn an income, your stress level will go through the roof as you've tried to figure out how to pay the escalating property tax. And believe me, property tax is going to go up and up and up until thine kingdom come. Because by the crook or by the hook, or vice versa, they are going to get you no matter what. Until and unless we do what I'm going to share with you, they are going to make sure they suck the living life out of you. So don't be fooled by the nice talk of Damian Crawford or the sweet budget presentation of Nigel Clark or the wonderful statements by the Prime Minister or the promise of salvation by the opposition leader. They have a plan for you, and their plan is to keep you fearful, keep you ignorant, and keep you financially weak so that they can continue to have you slave for them until thine kingdom come. That is the plan. And it's a pity that it seems to be working. Jamaica remains nothing more and nothing less than a colony of whoever our politicians get into bed with. Be it America, be it England, be it the European Union, or communist China. The end result is the same. The prostitution of the nation to enrich the PSOJ oligarchs and the scammers they use to represent them in our parliament. That's it, my friends. So Jamaica remains a colony to this day. There's no such thing as an independent Jamaica. We're a colony of whoever these two parties are in bed with. And if you look at the trajectory, look at the timestamp of all of these deals with China or any other country, they transcend parties. It's not a JLP thing. The wicked Andrew Holness is not the wicked Andrew Holness. It's the wicked system embraced by JLP and PNP alike. And they are determined to keep that system in check and will do anything and everything to keep it that way. And the only way to overcome it is if you overcome your fear and if you overcome your ignorance and if you overcome the temptation to think that because of your economic challenge, you can't stand up. No, I have done it. I have overcome my fear. I have overcome my ignorance. And I have overcome my financial weakness to say I'm going to stand up. So my friends, China, America, Europe, and England is not the problem. We are, you and me. We are the problem. Yes, they may have tricked us. They may have enslaved us. And for sure, they're milking us. But we let them. We have to decide that enough is enough and rise up like Nanny, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle, George William Gordon, and Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We have to decide to take back our lives, our land, and our children's future. As Garvey was in the 1900s, I am today. Garvey gave us the UNIA and the party of the people, by the people, for the people. But we failed to take it and run with it. We allowed the PSOJ oligarchy or the plantocracy of the day, together with the Gleaner, which was the media of the day, to use two colonial parties to vilify, demonize, and silence Garvey and his party. And thus we end up with what we have today. We, my friends, must learn from the past. We must learn from history. We must be careful not to repeat the evils of history. Every Jamaican who is tired of the colonization of Jamaica needs to demonstrate their desire for real change and real change now. And the way to do that is simple. Very, very simple. It takes nothing. You have to join, you have to volunteer, and you have to donate to the UIC to ensure we sweep out the JLP and PNP and give ourselves a fighting chance as a real constitutional republic. You have to make sure that they don't trick us into a fake republic. You have to make sure that they don't lock us into a permanent colonial status. You have to make sure that your rights are protected and secured and transmitted to your children and their children. I can't do that for you, no matter how much you wish or hope it. I can't do that by myself. Much as I try, hard as I try, much as I want to, I can't do it by myself. We have to do it because we are stronger than me. We have to do it, my fellow Jamaicans. We have to get up and stand up and fight for our rights. We have to do it because nobody else is going to do it for us. There is no Messiah who is coming to do it for us. Yes, I know they have taught us to sing in the sweet by and by. We shall meet on that beautiful shore while our adversaries are enjoying their milk and honey at our expense right here, right now, today. We need to rise up and take control of our own destiny or consign ourselves to a miserable history similar to that of our ancestors who lost 400 years, in fact, 500 years of their labor and the value of their lands. Yeah? Right now, for the last 80 years, they have used partisan politics to trick us into mistaking each other as the enemy. We have one true enemy, one solid enemy we have. And many of you do not realize who the enemy is. You think the enemy is your brother wearing a green shirt, or you think the enemy is your sister wearing an orange shirt. No, my friends. We have one true enemy, and that enemy is the PSOJ oligarchy that funds the two colonial parties and which represent the values of the colonial masters which control them both. That's the enemy. That enemy, called the PSOJ, they are going to make sure that the two colonial parties have more than $300 million to buy your votes in the next election. That enemy is a powerful enemy because that enemy has your wealth, which they have extricated over centuries. They were called the plantocracy before. They were the landowners, the white landowners who control the wealth of our nation. They who control the labor of our nation, the land of our nation, and the resulting capital of our nation. And they have used that our land and our labor and our capital against us to build massive empires of wealth in the banking sector, in the trading sector. And they control this wealth, and they use that wealth to buy your representatives. They decide who gets to run as a serious candidate in your elections. So you don't have a choice, because they have selected who can be feasible, who can be reasonable, who can be plausible on the ballot box. They have spent millions of dollars to ensure that they have two well-ingrained tribes, well-oiled election machinery in place that no independent candidate can ever hope to win an election in this country. That no third party can ever hope to win an election in this country. They have built that machinery and given you two parties. And we have sucked it up. We have bought it hook, line, and sinker. They have tricked us magnificently that we believe strongly in these two parties instead of in ourselves. And so we throw up our hands in the air and proudly proclaim no third party can win. We just give up. And we think that we can exist without taking our politics seriously. And so the real enemy are those who fund these two parties. These two parties are mere figureheads representing the PSOJ oligarchy and the colonial masters over all of them. Whoever is the colonial master of the day buys them all because they want to be in the pockets of whichever colonial power comes with the money to dish out. So it doesn't matter if it's China today, or America yesterday, or England the day before, or Spain sometime prior. It does not matter. And so if we do not join, if we do not join together, if we do not volunteer our time together, if we do not donate our little money and pool it together to ensure we have a strong and powerful UIC in the next election, they will combine their vote buying power of all those who are too mentally damaged and financially hungry to know better, to continue the 80-year-old trick of divide and conquer politics. That is what they're about. So we need to understand who the real enemy is. We need to know who the real enemy is. And we have to fight that enemy, not with sticks and stones, not with guns and bullets, but by joining our hands and our hearts together as one Jamaica, all Jamaicans, fighting for the common cause of good governance, liberty, and justice for all. We need to understand that the governments of Jamaica over the last 80 years did not and today do not work for the people of Jamaica. They work for the PSOJ oligarchy and their colonial masters. That's why their policies results in our jobs, our natural resources, and our lands going to the elites and foreign interests, while our local construction industry, our local engineers, our local architects, our local small business owners are all mostly left out and left at the bottom of their economic pyramid scheme. That's why, hard as you try as an entrepreneur, it is so difficult for you to break out of the painful situation into which you have been driven. There's no doubt that our fake government has never been able to effectively negotiate on our behalf. Every time they go and negotiate with anybody, China, America, England, you name it, we always end up with the wrong end of the stick. We lose our valuable lands when they negotiate for us. Our people are left behind when they negotiate for us. Our most valuable industries are lost, either taken away, taken over, or destroyed when they negotiate for us. Don't forget that. Don't let that slip you. Don't let that pass you. They are never negotiating in your best interest or my best interest. They will give away ganja. They will import ganja. They will destroy banana. They will destroy cane. They will destroy everything in this country so long as they get a piece of the ill-gotten pie. That's all that matters. That is why no matter how poor we are, no matter how much we have struggled, no matter how much there was to ban our belly, the banks make billions. Grace Kennedy makes billions. All the big companies in Jamaica makes billions of profit every year, while you and I must ban our belly. We must subsist on minimum wage. We must subsist on low wages. We must know that if we call for more, we're going to mash up the economy, because only them must make the billions. You and I must suffer. After 80 years on the job, it is clear that we cannot and should not trust the PSOJ oligarchy or the two colonial parties that they fund and control. I'll say it again. They do not work for us. And they will never work for us. I tell you this, when China and America and the rest of the world is finished extracting our bauxite and in the process destroying our farmlands, we will be left with nothing but deforestation, water, soil, and air pollution, and largely an unskilled, poor, and crime-ridden population, most of whom will be living on the margins as tenants in the worst parts of what's left of our land. That's where we're heading, folks. That's where we're heading. Whether the two parties even realize it or not, that's where they are taking us under the leadership of the PSOJ oligarchy, which drives them, and the colonial powers which they go into bed with for a quick fix. Now, I tell you that I'm going to share with you how you can become a landowner in Jamaica. And I was not lying. I'm going to tell you straight up how you can ensure that your right to land in this country is fully protected, how you can gain that land free and clear without paying property taxes in perpetuity. Tonight, I'm going to share that with you. And that's what I'm working up towards. Yeah? I'm going to make a declarative statement. The UIC is our only hope of reclaiming and actually owning land in our country. And when I say the UIC is our only hope, I am not jesting. You will have other third parties that will arise. I can assure you that by the next election, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, which has only seats for the two colonial parties, will ensure that you have multiple third parties to choose from. They will make sure that you are as confused as hell in the next election. And they're counting on our ignorance as a people to become frustrated and just at the hell with it and do one of two things. Either vote for the evil that you know, or don't vote at all. So they can cement into your minds the idea that a third party can never win, and so you must just keep doing what you have always been doing, so you can keep getting what you have always been getting. They have a plan to permanently lock Jamaica into this two-party monopoly, which is not two-party at all. It is a PSOJ oligarchy monopoly, where you think you have a choice, but you have no choice at all. And when you finally give up, when you finally realize you have no choice, you will choose to simply not participate, which by extension is giving them a carte blanche check to do with you as they please. I hope you understand what I just said there a while ago. I hope it is sinking in for you. As promised, I'm now going to tell you how you can get your land. How you can secure for yourself, your children, and your children's children the land that is rightfully yours without ever paying a cent for it and without ever paying property tax for as long as you shall live. And I want to be very clear, this is no fairy tale. This is not a pie in the sky suggestion. This is about your birthright. It is what belongs to you. I'm not offering you something that is not yours. I'm not offering you something that you cannot obtain. I'm simply giving you an opportunity to realize the magnitude of the opportunity that lies in front of you right now, tonight. And if you should decide to take up this offer, if you and countless other Jamaicans decide to take up this offer, it will be the greatest revolution in the entire world. We would have led the entire world in a revolution like no other, a bloodless revolution with unimaginable consequences in terms of the benefit, not only we in Jamaica, but our brothers and sisters in Africa, the rest of us in the Caribbean, and all across the world will finally realize. I begin to lay this out by pointing out to you once again, in no uncertain terms, that the JLP and the PNP, had 80 years to pay us land reparation, but did not. I'll say it again. The JLP and the PNP had 80 years to pay us land reparation, but did not. Yes, we know that the white man, as they always tell us, the white man enslaved us and the white man extracted our labor. And the white man had us as slaves for 400 years. And the white man had us under a system of colonialism for over another 106 years. And then the white man gave us the right to vote in 1944 and gave us what was called self-governance. And for 18 years, we practiced self-governance, where we had one man, one vote, and we voted in people who looked like us or somewhat looked like us or was not too far removed from us. And we gave them the honor and the privilege and the responsibility to sit in what was supposed to be our legislature. And then at the end of that 18 years of trial period, that 18 years to see if we would buy into the lie of a partisan system of governance, after that 18 years, they gave us independence, and they gave us a constitution which our leaders who looked like us and somewhat looked like us embraced that constitution and told us we were now a free nation. With them as our representative. Of course, that was a lie. They represented the crown. They represented the elites. But they claimed that they represented us. And they gave big speeches of how they love the poor, how they care about the poor, how they want to help the poor, how they're working on behalf of the poor. And we loved them. Some of us proclaimed, we will follow Buster Manty till we die. Some proclaimed Norman Manley as the man with the plan. Some called Michael Manley Joshua with the rod of correction. Others referred to Papa Heddy. And some the Fresh Prince. And others Mama P. And some the driver. And some the builder. But in the end, it's all a game of cards. They had 80 years, and if not 80, they had 60 years to give us the reparation that they claimed they wanted. They clamored for England, for America, for whoever, Europe, to give us reparation for slavery. And all this time, they had the land in their possession that they could have returned free of charge to the people of Jamaica, to every single deserving family in this country. And they refused. For 80 years, they did that to you. They played games with so-called land lease. They played games with so-called land reforms, and they played games with so-called NHT or National Housing Trust while withholding our land from us for 8 long decades. And they have been forcing us to buy back our birthright, to buy back what belonged to us, to buy back what was stolen from our ancestors. They, black men and women like us, did that to us and tell us they put people first and tell us how much they care. Lie, lie, and damn lie. The land should have been and now must be returned free of charge to those whose ancestors it was stolen from. We must demand local reparation now, and we must proclaim no squatter, no day again. And we don't want Damian Crawford nice mouth and sweet talk. We've had enough of that now. We're not going to beg them to give us our land or to come up with some nice sounding schemes again this time and give us some grand election promise so that they can get fewer time now. Now we want action and not a bag amount. And the action is not one that we are going to ask them to take. I recommend strongly, my friends, that we take the action. We, the people, must take the action this time. We must not wait for the JLP to take action. We must not wait for the PNP to take action. We, the people, must take action now. We, the people, must decide once and for all now that we are going to take back what rightfully belongs to us. And there's only one way to do that with the greatest of certainty. And to do that, we must remember, we must understand, we must appreciate, we must not mistake the fact that the JLP and the PNP are no better than their colonial masters. They are no better than those who enslaved us. They are no better than those who colonized us. They are no better than those from whom they took charge of this country, because they have maintained and perpetuated a lie for which we have paid a dear price. They have forced us to slave and buy back the very land that was stolen from us in the first place. That is unforgivable. Don't let them fool you about any policy or programs that their party had done and did this and tried that. It's all a lie. It's all a sham. NHT is one of the greatest sham ever. A great tool to win votes, while giving a few a small patch, a small benefit, while the vast majority would never live to see a benefit for as long as they shall slave on this land. My friends, the JLP and the PNP are the same. They force us to pay property tax, which makes us nothing more than land holders instead of land owners. They have continued the ideology of the colonial master because it served their purpose. The PNP and the JLP are just crooks. They're just as crooked, just as deceptive, and just as wicked as the very PSOJ oligarchy, the very plantocracy, and the very massa that they represent. So it's time for us to rise up like Sam Sharp. It's time for us to rise up like Bogle. It's time for us to expel them from Gordon House, expel them from Jamaica House, and expel them from every house in this country. They must be prosecuted, they must be convicted of murder, of theft, of treason, and be made to pay for the 80 years of injustice that they have meted out on our people. That is how we're going to take back our land. And I promise you, on my own life, that should you elect the UIC, should you join, volunteer, and donate, should you help us to have candidates in every single constituency, should you help us to win this government in a way that is unmistakable, you can be assured that the land, if nothing else, will be returned 100% to the people of Jamaica. We are going to make every single family, every single indigenous Jamaican family, we are going to make them a property owner. We are going to give back this land to the people of Jamaica free and clear. And not a single politician who has gotten land through any corrupt way will be allowed to continue to own those lands. Not them, not their children or their grandchildren. We are going to take back the land from anybody who has not earned the right to own such a land. And we're going to make sure that every single Jamaican family is a property owner. We are going to implement a powerful scheme that's going to make sure that every child, every family has the nutrition, the education, the healthcare, and the housing that they need to succeed. We're going to emulate and exceed what Singapore has so effectively done in 25 years that we have taken 60 years and still not do, we're going to make sure that as they were able to make 92% of their population homeowners, we're going to make 98%. We're going to make every Jamaican a property owner in this country. We're going to take back the land from whoever has it. And we're going to take the land that is not yet occupied. And we're going to say, no squatter the day again. So as poor as you may be, as low income as you may be, as disadvantaged as you may be, under a UIC government, you are going to now have property and an opportunity to develop and preserve generational wealth. Those who have property have the first foundation for developing great wealth. If you have a place to live, a place that gives you tenure, a place that you own, a place that nobody, no bank can come kick you out of, and if you have education, not the kind of education you're giving now, good education, education that teaches you to know yourself, how to build great relationships, and how money works. Education that empowers you with competencies, not just passing exams. If you have the foundations necessary for wealth creation, nothing can stop you. And the UIC is committed to righting those wrongs. The 80 years of PNP, JLP injustice, and the 500 years of the colonial powers, slavery and injustices, we're going to right those wrongs by doing what we can do, not by waiting for reparations from outside, but by giving you reparations inside. And so that is how you can become a landowner in Jamaica, free and clear, poor or not. The UIC is your ticket to owning land in this country, no matter how poor you are. Let's do it. Now, if you want to talk with me, if you have any questions or comments, please, the number is on the screen, 876-293-0812. I'm ready to take your call. We have 15 minutes or so for calls tonight, and I hope we get as many calls as possible in that short period of time. But I want to thank all of you for your patience here tonight, for you joining me on this topic. I know it's a very, what do you call it now? Emotional topic. For me, it's very emotional because I saw what my mother went through, and I had to slave and buy land. And, some other sides of my family has land and they get it through various means. But there are many Jamaicans, like those people in Pleasant Hill, Lloydersville, and those in Bernard Lodge and other areas who are being called squatters. We want to fix that. We want to reverse that, not by talking about going to court and playing around. Let us do what is right. Let us end the embargo placed on us by our own government and return the lands to the people. 1 second. Hello, good night, and welcome to the program. Joseph Patterson here. Sure.
One, yes, sir, can you expound on how the people can obtain their land via property tax free, and what are your policies concerning the racism that is primary government is allowing by these other European, Asian, and Chinese to celebrate the beaches and properties from Jamaican people in their own land? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to hang up now and you listen on the live. All right, wonderful. So he wants to know how we're going to ensure that every Jamaican become a property owner, and how we're going to return the beaches to the people of Jamaica. I'm summarizing here. So I'm not going to give you a lot of details on this because the two parties have a habit of taking what I say, reshaping them, and they have the media on their side, so they get to go out there and tell the people everything before they ever hear from me or the UIC. What I can say though is that our policy is based on the reality that what we're proposing is already done in some degree in other countries. One country is Singapore, where they have effectively made 92 to 93% of their citizens property owners. In a very small country, by the way. Singapore is 1/15 our size, but has twice our population, and they have been able to do it. We have studied their models and others, and we have a model that's designed for Jamaica that's going to ensure we have a good balance between protecting our farmlands, making sure that those lands are owned by the Jamaican people in the similar way that oil-rich countries give their citizens a dividend from the oil revenues. We're going to make sure that Jamaicans own the land and benefit directly by way of cash dividends to them for the benefit of using our land. Those who want to farm and can farm will be given the opportunity to do that. And for those who are not going to farm, for example, we're going to make sure that they get a home in lieu of direct ownership of the land. And so we'll form a balance. At the end of the day, this ensures that every person who needs a decent home has one. Those who have incomplete homes, we're going to have a policy to complete those homes for them within reason. Those who have a large amount of land and are unable to use it effectively will enter into arrangements to maximize the use of those lands if they're in residential spaces. And we're going to do our best to cordon off and designate as much of the good land as possible for agriculture as we seek to make Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. In our new economy, we're going to be driven by three primary industries: water, food, and energy. And those three industries, coupled with our commitment to creating a safe, clean, and orderly, very beautiful Jamaica, will bring us a bigger, much wider, more deeper, more community-based tourism that will increase our tourist inflow, but not make the economy dependent on it. It will be a big part of our revenue stream, but it's going to be, organic to the way we live, as opposed to an add-on where it's separate from the rest of the nation. It's going to be a part of the country, so organic farming will become a normal part of our living, community tourism another part of our living, and a quality space for all of us to enjoy will become the norm. So a very different and higher standard of living will be achieved in the new Jamaica, which will mean all of our beaches becoming public again. No one will be allowed to own the beachfront of whatever property that they have. The boundaries will be very clear. Your land, your ownership boundary cannot extend to the beach. The beach must be open. And instead of us having persons having to cordon off the beach to preserve, the quality and ambience that they want, we're going to make all of Jamaica a tourist destination so that every inch of the country is well kept, well maintained, decent and order, so that you don't have to worry about having to own the beachfront because the quality is there by way of the standard that the government employs. Good evening, Mr. Campbell. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
My question for you pertains. For me, I want to find out how the UIC will take the message to the people, because in my opinion, the UIC has a message that the people need. And how do we take this message to people in the small communities, in the fishing villages, in the little towns? Because we're not going to win people who already benefited from the society right now. So we have to go to the people who are marginalized in the society. How do we get this message to those people? And this is where I see we're having a disconnect. We don't have that connection with the people. We don't go to where they are to talk to them. What are your plans, or the plans of the UIC, to go into these little areas to build support one at a time? If it's just one man, we go to that one man and build that support and has that and get that momentum from one full basket And how do we use that to benefit the UIC? Thanks, I'll listen to your response.
Wonderful, great question. Let's hear, answer. Yes, good evening. Hi, good evening. Yes, how are you doing?
Mr. Patterson?
Good night, how are you?
I'm pretty good, sir. Yourself?
Good, fine, thanks. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Connecticut.
Wonderful. And what's your first name?
Mike.
Mike. Okay, Mike, what's your question tonight?
Okay, so my question is based on giving back the people land. Is it necessarily that they have a piece of land for themselves, or is it that you'll build apartments and they own the apartment, which encompasses the land that they're built on? Is that like a way of saying they owned the land?
Okay, great question. I'm going to hang up now and answer you, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so we have two questions there. I'll answer the last one first because that's easier. So the last one is about, what will people really own? Is it the land they're going to own, or are they going to get an apartment and so on? It's a mix. It's not a one size fit all. So some people will get condominiums if that fits into what works for them. Some will have flats or townhouses or what do you call it now, bungalows or semi-detached. Different types of housing mix will be provided. And there are some who just want their piece of land. That will be provided as well. Some want to be directly in farming. Some already have land. And what they will need now is some kind of support to complete a house on that land. So we're going to have a program that really meets people where they are. For the most part, though, we're going to build high-density housing, which is very important in order for us to preserve most of Jamaica to be engaged in organic farming, water harvesting, and renewable energy production. So we're going to build a solid industry around those three things: water, food, and energy. And of course, that's not an end in itself. The goal of all of those things is to fund good nutrition, good healthcare, good education, and quality housing, decent housing, family housing, so that our people can live good, learn well, and develop into a modern, highly intelligent, highly productive, highly effective citizenry, so that Jamaica can be a first-class nation, not superficially, but practically and pragmatically at the people level, at the individual level. Not the kind of macro successes you're used to hearing from our government. Oh, we're doing well in GDP or debt to GDP. No, we want it to be felt practically at the grassroots level, which is why our economic model, we call it a bottom-up economic model, a grassroots model, where our goal is to empower the small man. And the best way to empower the small man is through property ownership, education, and access to capital, right? And housing. If you have those basics, you can do very, very well. But to the first question of the person who called prior, which is, how do we get the message out? We get the message out by you, word of mouth, and by you donating so that we can go door to door in the community. Without your donation, I can't go very far. It takes gas. I have a full-time job, right? I have a company I run. Every time I leave my business, I'm losing income. And I've lost a lot of that in order to do the UIC work. Now, the more you give us, I'm trying to put together a team here. I need to pay this team. They have to get some compensation. They cannot, it's like hiring a lawyer. You can't hire a lawyer and say, go and represent me, do a good job, but I'm not going to pay you anything. I'm going to, just sit here and wait for you to do for me while I do nothing. So what we're saying to you is join the UIC so we have the numbers. And All right, am I back with you now? Can you hear me? Yeah, I was off for a second there. I think I lost connection for a little bit. Let me know if you can hear me now. If you can hear me, type yes. If not, well, if you can hear me, type yes. Let me know. Can you hear me? Wonderful, thanks. I forgot what I was saying a while ago. But NS said, Mr. Patterson, I know that you are well aware that people like to see the benefits of their contributions. Absolutely, absolutely. The benefit of your contribution right now, the 200 of you who are donating, you're the ones keeping the lights on. How we all the things we do are paid for by you who are donating. Yeah, and so we're doing our best with a very, we have to save up money to do each activity. We can't plan ahead to say we're going to do this because we don't know if we have the money. We have to wait and save up little money as people donate, and then we go do the next activity. The other guys don't have to do that. The other guys, they have a big stash of cash, and they can say, okay, for the year we're going to do this, and they can plan out, which is the way it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be able to plan. You say, here's my plan, here's what I'm going to do in January, in February, in March, in May, and so on. We don't have that. We are like you. We're living hand to mouth. The UIC is living hand to mouth. Right now, if you go and check our bank account, our Jamaican dollar bank account has about $500,000 in there. Jamaican. Yeah. What is that in US? Let me tell you. I don't know the number. So 500,000 roughly, I think it is. Roughly, that's about $3,333 US we have in our Jamaican bank account. And in our US bank account, I think we have about $7,000 there right now. So that's about $1 million. So 10,003 something US dollars. Yeah. And out of that, funds are designated for stuff. We have things that bills that we owe money for in the past, we have to be paying off. We have a deficit right now of about $3 million in deficit. Yeah. Like if you look at our audited financial statements, which just came out back in March, you'll see we have a deficit of over $3 million. So we don't have any money. Without your donations, we're nothing. If we're going somewhere, it's hard. We have to figure out, how do we get a bus? You want to pick up people, you have to be penny pinching, penny pinching. We have to carpool and try to figure things out. It's very difficult, very, very difficult. So the easy thing for us to do, it's very simple. We have about 4 million people in the diaspora. 4 million people in diaspora. 4 million. We have 2 million voters in Jamaica. If 1% of the diaspora and 2% of the Jamaican voters decided to donate to the UIC, $25 a month, $50 a month, it's over. They can't stop us. So yes, we want to go out into the grassroots. We want to go door to door. We want to go everywhere. But we can't do that without, or enough of it. We have done it. I've been out several times. I mean, I've gone across all the parishes, but I can't do this every day. I mean, if I do it, you guys will see me on the street begging with a pan, sitting on a corner saying, I've lost my house, I've lost my car, I've lost my wife. So, we have to be serious here. We have to understand the war we're fighting here, right? And so the war requires that you fund the soldiers. You want the soldiers to go into the trenches, you have to send us supplies. You have to give us the guns and ammunition, the food, the trucks, the medical supplies. If we do not have the resources, we cannot go to fight for you. I don't have a research assistant. I don't have an executive assistant. My wife pitches in to do that. And when she does that, she neglects our business. So then we have to catch up on our, all the stuff that are left undone, because when I'm doing UIC stuff, that stuff isn't being done. Now, the other politicians you're used to, the ones that have spoiled you because they get money from the big rich guys, they have all of that covered. When Obama was running for office, before he collected a cent from small donors, he had offices set up in all of the states. So you had, offices and volunteers coming in and big donors behind them, So don't be fooled. So we have to decide how we're going to get that done. And the only way, it's very simple. Join, volunteer, donate. Join, volunteer, donate. That's the only way. Yeah. Join, volunteer, donate. The current party in power, they have the benefit of both your tax dollars to spend, and they're flushed with cash from the PSOJ oligarchy because they're happy with what they're doing. Okay. The PNP, the opposition party, they have the full support of the media. They have 80 years, more than 80 years of a political machinery built up. They have the legacy of the love of people from Michael Manley and what he has done and what he means. So they have a huge advantage there, plus the donations that they have from the same elites, who want to keep the system going. So they're fine. You now have to own this movement. And when you own this movement and say, we settle in on this is our movement now. Yeah, we know that one day, we know that, but we own this movement. And we start to give, here in Jamaica, give you $250 a week, you $1,000 a month. And in the diaspora, give you $10, you $20. And that will make sure you can see us fully out there. Right now, we don't have enough money. And now I have to tell you this. So you and the enemy knows the UIC's condition. You nor the UIC doesn't know the enemy's condition. I have to come and be begging. Look how long me I beg for Jamaicans to come on board and help to rescue their own country. And I have to beg, and everybody questions everything I do. Question, where's the money going? They're giving money to vloggers every day. Vloggers come on and talk to them every day and just talk. And vloggers don't, they don't get involved in fixing the problem. And they talk, and people give them money left, right, and center, and don't ask them where's the money going. They give $1 to the UIC. They're like, where's the money going? We're fully vetted. We have to provide audited statement every year to the very enemies. We have to give it to the Electoral Commission of Jamaica every year, audited statements, where we have to account for everything. And our audits are there and it's scrutinized and everything. Yeah. So we're very, very transparent. So we are totally transparent, and yet still people are still hesitant. Some are still waiting. They're waiting. I hope the UIC win, but not doing anything. The UIC can't win unless you do something. It's very simple. If 1,000 of us, if tomorrow morning 1,000 of us get up and gave $25, yeah, $25,000 times, let's say 150 exchange rate, it's kind of different. That's $3.7 million for the month. Give us that and you see the UIC everywhere. And that's chicken feed, by the way, compared to what the other guys have. $3.7 million per month. That's what? 45 million. It's nothing. The other party gets 300 million for 2 weeks. 300 million for 2 weeks. So let us decide what we want. I have laid out for you where the UIC is going to take this country. I have made very clear to you all of our policies. We have been extremely transparent, and we are giving you a chance to own for the first time since Marcus Garvey your own political party, owned by the people, working for the people, and is of the people. If we do not take up this opportunity, there's no other third party, no matter what they come with. They're going to come with all kind of different stuff. If they do not follow the model that the UIC has put forward to you, then you can't trust them. If they do not come to you with the same model of ensuring that you own the party, your question must be, who owns you? So if a party come to you and say, we don't need any donations, we can do it by ourselves. If I were you, I'd be scared stiff. Where are they getting the funding from? Who will be pulling the strings? And that's why when we designed the UIC, We designed it this way, to be owned by the people, to be run by the people, to be fully transparent to the people, and to articulate policies that are clearly for the people. For example, when the UIC is elected and we replace the constitution with a new one, that constitution doesn't give us, the UIC, any advantage. The new constitution gives you an independently elected executive branch of government, separate and apart from the legislative branch of government. Even the Senate is elected independently. Now you have perfect checks and balances between those three branches, as well as the judicial branch, the way it will be constituted. The very model of governance removes the power from the politician and devolves that to the people. Now, no other party will offer you that, because they know that if they do that, they're giving away their power. The PNP would never offer you a model like the UICs, because that model will take away their power. The JLP would never offer you, because it will take away their power. We do not want power. We want to return power to the people. And so our system, our model, our design, our governance model is designed to return the power to the people and to codify that in law in such a way that regardless of who you elect in the future, if you elect good leaders, this system will empower them to do very well. And if you elect bad leaders, this system will contain them and prevent them from violating your fundamental rights or destroying your economy or denying you your birthright. That's what you want. You want a system that is as foolproof as possible, one that will guarantee you the safety, the cleanliness, the order, and the sovereignty that you need to be a prosperous citizen in a space that is designed for your well-being. So that's what we have. Well, my friends, I have come to the end of my time. We have no more calls at the moment. But thank you all so very much again for joining us tonight. And remember, our goal is to have one Jamaica, because we're stronger together. Don't let them thief the land from you. Don't allow them to give away our land or to sell out our land. Let us take it back. And the way to do that is to join, volunteer, and donate to elect the UIC in the next election. Thank you. Good night. Until next time. All the best.